Hi, everybody. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Millennials Think Tank edition, where we focus on the future of sports and get millennials' perspective on what they're watching, what they're not watching, and why. I just want to give a little bit of information, not really the type of statistics I have at every hangout, but I want to just mention a few things that I think are pertinent to the discussion. And one is that 2014 was soccer's biggest year in the U.S. You know, the World Cup had a lot to do with it. That's interesting to me because in the 80s and 90s, soccer had a huge, I won't even call it a revival, but rise in popularity. And in my generation, everybody played soccer, and then it waned. That people had expected it to be bigger, and the prediction is that 2015 will be soccer's biggest year as far as attendance and viewership in the U.S. Sorry, Canada, we're leaving you out of these again. One interesting thing to me is that college football is on the decline. Attendance live attendance at college football, not viewership. And one thing that is happening that I find interesting is that at halftime, a lot of college students are leaving the game to go find connectivity, so they can get on their cell phones online, and then maybe not all coming back into the games. This is something I did not know until I did research for this. The NBA ranks second after the NFL in viewership in the U.S. I did not think that was the case. Despite all the challenges that the NFL has had in recent years from a PR perspective, its TV ratings are still enormous. 73% of all American men watch football regularly, 55% of all American women, and that is just huge juggernaut numbers. So I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves first, and then I'll ask you all some basic questions I want everyone to answer. But Albert, why don't we start with you?
Hi, my name is Albert Chen. I'm a 26-year-old Silicon Valley native, born and raised here, and I guess also very much into sports. Currently running 4 fantasy football teams.
Okay. Essie?
I'm Hessie Jones. I'm CEO of our company. I'm an older Gen Xer. I was a lover of sports, but now I don't seem to have a lot of time for it.
Joe?
My name is Joe Cardillo. I'm, I guess, an older millennial. I do a ton of different sort of stuff for startups, including content and analytics. I'm also ARC, and I guess I'm what I would call sort of a fairly casual sports viewer. I have a lot of folks that I know who are really into sports, and so I sometimes kind of get sort of into the slipstream. But I'm not what I would sort of say like a major consumer of major sports. So.
Okay, Kelly.
Hi, my name is Kelly Moscovian. I'm 27 years old. I got into sports probably around the age of 13. Prior to that, I had absolutely no interest, and I got into it by getting into hockey. And since then, I've become a much more avid watcher of sports, like football, baseball. Huge fan of Barclays Premier League soccer, which I'm really happy has made it over to the U.S. and ESPN. And I work in golf and hockey now.
Okay, great. Selena?
Yeah, sorry for the little mute. Yeah, my name is Selena Mendoza. I am a 22-year-old millennial. So I am very interested in the NBA. Basketball is my one love. I currently work in the solar industry, and I'm an entrepreneur, so I have a couple of my own startups on the side as well.
Great. Okay, Satnam?
Oh yeah, my name is Satnam Singh. I'm 28-year-old. I live in Silicon Valley. Huge sports fan. I usually watch a lot of NFL and Barclays Premier Leagues and Champion League. I'm working on a startup, and also I'm actively seeking new opportunities.
Okay, so all of you watch the NFL a little bit, except maybe Selena. Am I wrong about that? Because I was going to ask everyone, show of hands. All right, who watches the NFL regularly? Just raise your hand, because I just want to have that for the. Okay, so I was totally wrong about that. A little
kinda,
bit.
maybe
Kind of
bi-weekly.
Because it's in the house and it's on. That kind of viewership.
Yeah, well, it's on like my computer when I'm at work, kind of thing, and
Okay.
maybe on Sundays, yeah, hanging out with friends.
Okay. So what about how many people watch? And just give me a show of hands because we have so much to cover. How many people watch baseball regularly when it's in season? One person? Okay, wow. Did anybody watch the World Series? Okay, Selena does. Did anybody watch the World Series? Okay, so the World Series will bring you. Okay. How many
Yeah,
people?
the Giants are also my team, so
That's
I mean.
right. I knew that. I knew your head was
Yeah.
exploding one night.
Bay Area, a little bit biased.
All right. So just a show of hands. How many of you watch golf at all during the year? Well, Kelly, you have to.
I do.
I don't even watch. It's like it's on the TV, but actually in the pro shop we normally switch it to football.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Like we'll have it on during the week, but I work mostly on weekends now, so it's been all World Series or football.
Okay. And well, what if there's a huge major? What if there's a huge? I'm forgetting the word. And Satnam even said he went to them. A major on.
Major tournaments, the 4 major tournaments of golf.
So
Yeah, major on. We'll air it, but I mean, I'm not under any obligation to watch it.
I hope not. Okay. and just a show of hands real quick. How many of you watch the NBA? I know Selena does. Regularly.
Oh, not regularly.
Define regularly because it's
All right. More than once a year.
more than once.
Frequently enough to follow a team.
Sure, I do.
Well, I mean, it's an 82-game season. I mean, I follow the Warriors, but I mean, I'm not. I have yet to really do like a fantasy basketball team. I guess if that's maybe a measurement.
All right, Albert, we need to get on that. Well, we can.
So there is fantasy basketball because I'm not aware of this. I guess there's fantasy.
Yeah, there's fantasy sports for everything. You can fantasy golf. You can do fantasy hockey, baseball.
Fantasy League of Legends.
You can do fantasy NASCAR.
Yeah.
Correct.
Oh.
Yeah.
Pretty much anything.
There's fantasy right now.
Okay, so I don't even have time for real sports. I'm wondering how you guys fit into fantasy stuff. All right, so I'm going to focus on golf really quickly, and the way we can do this is jump in if you feel strongly about it. If you don't, I'm going to start forcing you to answer things. All right, and this one all of you can do, and I want you to take the 60 seconds to do it. I want you to give me your 60-second or less opinion or perspective on what golf is. So, Albert, I'm going to start with you. What's your opinion of golf?
I think it's a sport where you, get a lot of business deals in because, a lot of people play golf on the course. I think it's also a misunderstood sport because, I know a lot of people who, have this debate over whether golf is an actual sport or whether it's just people swatting clubs and whatnot. I think for me, though, when I look at golf, when I really paid attention to it ever, it was, because Tiger Woods was doing Tiger Woods' thing. That's what would actually make me watch golf, maybe on Sunday, the final day of the Masters, because that was interesting to me. As opposed to whatever it is now, I'll listen to whatever it is on a sports update, but as far as I'm concerned, there's really no one I'm rooting for, and so it's not really something that I'm too interested in. So that's kind of my 60 seconds.
Okay. Essie, do you want to give me your opinion on it? I know.
Well, I do watch it. I do watch some news, and honestly, I actually enjoy it. I enjoy when, oh God, I don't even know, Garcia, he's one of my favorite players. When he's hot.
Oh, God. Okay, go.
Anyway, but even, is it Michelle Lee?
Michelle Wee.
Michelle Wee. See, I don't know the names, but, it's not as, I think it's a sport. I don't think it's one of those that you lose weight doing. That's why I don't know if you could define it as a sport. But it is hard, and I played it, and I can't do it. So, but I definitely think it has been, for the most part, attributed towards making business deals, just like what Albert says. So,
Joe, I'd love to hear your opinion, perspective.
Yeah, so I watch a couple of tournaments, maybe 3 tournaments a year, and enjoy them actually. I watch the Masters typically, and I play golf, not a lot. I've played it. I would say a couple times a year maybe at this point. Partly it's just really expensive and sort of inaccessible is one of the perceptions I have of it. And I don't really see golf as a thing that connects very much. So I'll give you an example of why I'm kind of not a big fan. Is mean, I live in a desert, right? I live in New Mexico. Arizona's right next door. Most golf courses per capita. And you know what? They could care less about the fact that water consumption is a really serious problem in the West. That just kind of turns me off. So stuff like that, you know, if I'm giving you my totally honest perception of golf, great sport, kind of fun to play, really interesting, totally out of touch. I mean, totally out of touch with the modern world. And I'm just being honest. That's
Okay,
my
no, I want you to be honest. You're not.
Yeah.
This is not a test at all.
Yeah.
Kelly, I know you work at a golf course, but
Yeah.
so if you could even erase the fact that you work there, but what's your perception of it? And I mean, obviously you can't erase it, but I'd love to know give that kind of description of what you think golf is.
Golf as a sport, it's a game. I'm right there that I don't think I would necessarily define it as a sport as much as it's a game. It's like lawn bowling or darts or something like that, where, in fact, it's actually a great tool to bring people together. Let's all go golf. It's fun and you get some drinks. It's like going to happy hour or something. It's something to do and it's fun, and most people aren't going to be great at it, so no one really has to feel too pressured by it. But it's not a sport, and I think my perception of it is that it is really hard to not perceive who I see playing it regularly. And when I like what Joe said about it's out of touch, well, that's the people who play it too, are people who are out of touch. That what golf seems like to me is a place where the 1950s mindset still lives. It's where there is racism, sexism, class differentiate. I mean, it's huge, and it's one of those things that working on the golf course gave me this whole new perspective of, wow, I didn't know that this was as prevalent as it is. That it's not just one or two people that show up a day, it's half of the people that play here are literally that out of touch with current trends in society. And these are also the people that happen to be running our companies, because those are the people that can afford to play here.
Wow.
So that's my opinion.
Okay. And Selena, I know you're not an avid golfer, right? But I'd love to hear your perspective of golf.
Well, I've recently become an avid mini golfer, but I don't think that really applies to
No,
this.
it does. Honestly, it actually does, because many golfers sometimes become golfers. Yeah.
I'm not too good about mini golf, so maybe I should just stay off the field. But as far as golf, it's definitely a very expensive sport. I can tell you from being around people in my company that a lot of them do go golfing, but we kind of see it as, like Kelly said before, like bringing people together. We use it as, hey, let's go hang out, let's all get drunk together and drive around the course. So it's not really anything that I see as a sport. I think someone had mentioned that you don't really sweat, so I think, you can't even celebrate after, a hole-in-one or whatever, you do out in the field. You have to, clap, and I'm more of the aggressive, like, yeah, let's do it, I'm stoked, I just made that basket or whatever it is. So I think that having some type of aggression for me defines a sport. So I don't really think it's a sport. I think it's a game, just like darts. Like someone said before, it's definitely something that you can bring people together, drink, but it does bring a lot of money, a lot of like endorsements. And I think someone also mentioned about Tiger Woods. The only time I've ever watched golf is when Tiger Woods was there, and the only reason why I know about Tiger Woods is because of the great marketing, and he had, Gatorade endorsements. So obviously I saw that so many times to be like, oh, okay, maybe he is someone to watch, so I'll look at it. But I kind of get bored watching it. But I definitely know it's a calming sport. So being out on the golf course, it's beautiful, but I definitely don't agree with the water consumption as well, like Joe had mentioned. So it's not really environmental friendly, and I'm all about sustainability, so it kind of goes against what I'm all about.
Okay. Satnam, you do golf, right?
I don't golf because I don't have the patience to it, so that's why I don't golf. But I do love watching golf. I watch usually all four majors. I enjoy watching the Masters this year and the English Open. I think it was great. I love watching Rory McIlroy play. I think he's gonna be the next Tiger Woods. He was really good in the Master. I watched pretty much every stroke of his play over the last 2 days. I think the thing about golf is it is the rich people's game. And I think when people talk about them being out of this world or not being in touch, usually rich people don't give a crap about anything, right? You have the money, you're working, you make do that, so you really don't need to care about what's going on in other people's life or what's really happening, long as you have the money, you're doing work. I think that's where people get the perspective of it. And I think when you have all that money, you really don't give a crap. So you couldn't give a crap about water consumption or anything like that, right? If I was rich, I'd probably be the same way, right? To be honest about it. So I think it's really depends on when you say it's a sport versus it's a game. It really depends. When I watch it, it is a sport because it's extremely competitive. It might not be as physical as people might define. Like people, it is what you might call it sport, you might call it a game. It really depends on your description of how do you define a sport.
I mean, I don't know. I guess you could say archery. You don't sweat a lot either, but I would call that a sport. Can I just have you guys anybody want to jump in on the things Kelly said about misogyny and racism being part of golf? Does anyone else have an opinion on that? Go ahead, Selena.
Definitely do. There's also, of course, you have to dress the part. Women can't wear certain things, men can't wear certain things, certain colors, you can't say certain things. So I think that definitely there is a gender bias there. It's definitely a man's game over anything.
I would like to go to an NBA game with you to hear what you say.
Oh my gosh, I would be the loud one.
One thing that I also notice is that even just going into the into the club, there's a certain decorum that's expected. How you should actually present yourself, and it's so, I don't know, pretentious that like just the whole aura of being there, like you just don't feel like you belong.
That is interesting.
That's interesting. It's like, and is that decorum? Is that intimately related to the actual, like the sport? Because the sport itself, like the act of playing golf. Because I mean, kind of like what I was saying, like I like watching major tournaments. I know some people think watching golf is kind of boring, and I get that. But like, there's drama, there's intensity, there's passion, and I mean, I think you see that in lots of players. But the relationship that people have, all this sort of stuff that makes up golf culture, like how much, and I think we saw that with Tiger Woods, who was kind of like maybe. I mean, still pretty tuned into that, but like maybe a little less like a part of that decorum, right? He kind of did things his own way. Like that was more exciting to me, and I saw that and was like, hey, that's cool. That's a person, an athlete going out to do this sport really seriously. So that decorum is a total turnoff for me personally.
Mm-hmm. I will tell you that in Pennsylvania, where I'm from, there is a golf course, a country club, where women are still not allowed in the one stag bar. Even though they're allowed to be members. My uncle was a member there and invited one of our friends down here, and when he went with his wife and his wife couldn't get into the bar, he was totally livid. So, I mean, that's a rural area, but just interesting. Okay, so we're going to shift gears, and we're going to start talking about the NFL now. So I'll start with you, Satnam. So you're one of the millions of rabid fans in the U.S.
Yes.
I want to ask you, then I'm going to just jump right into, has social media impacted your opinion of the sport, and in particular with the domestic violence issues that the NFL is facing? I mean, it's been facing these bonehead issues for years, from Plexico shooting himself in the foot or the leg or whatever, to all of the issues that it seems to have plagued the NFL for a long time, but lately, this year, it was like something shifted. It was too much. So I'd love to hear your opinion, since you've been a longtime fan. Has that impacted your opinion?
As far as viewership goes, no, it has not impacted my viewership. I think longest, no matter what goes on, I'll be one of those millions fan watching it, right? But the attention and that from domestic violence has opened my eyes to how the NFL has not kept up its whatever you want to call about how they're teaching or policy they set up for these players to be better behave or help them with certain issues, domestic DUIs and so on. I think the education or the the resources they have available, they have not done a great job of doing that. But as far as viewership goes, no, I'll watch.
Do you
NFL.
follow a lot of players though, like on Twitter, and do you follow a lot of players on their own social feed?
No, no, I do not do that. I'm just a fan, so I don't follow person. I don't play NFL fantasy. I watch it for as enjoyment, but I don't get into too much of like following each player.
Who's your team?
49ers.
Okay, so you don't have one player that you're a fan of the team instead of the player?
No, as a 49er, I follow all the players, right? I'm a fan of the most of the team because I love the team. But I single out one player that I follow on Twitter and whatever he does, I retweet or whatever. No, I don't do that.
Okay.
It's
Anybody
definitely
else
impacted me. Yeah, it's definitely impacted me. I like to follow my favorite players on social media. I have been working in social media since I was like 17, so I guess I'm maybe a little bit biased because I'm kind of very passionate and enthusiastic about social media. I think it's changing the world, but definitely as far as sports, it keeps me engaged. Maybe if I'm at work or the game is on at like 4 and I get off at like 5:30, I'm actually able to get all the live updates. That's what I love, especially about Twitter, is I can go on Twitter, I can literally just search something and it has all of the updates, play by play, what exactly is happening. So I think that it has really impacted me, and I follow ESPN and Sports Center and all that good stuff. So
has it impacted your opinion of the NFL? And I know you're an NBA fan primarily, but especially with the Ray Rice, which is one of many that have come out. Adrian Peterson, all that stuff. Have you been following that on social media?
The only way that I actually follow it, because I don't really follow too much in regards to like NFL, but I was a part of a nonprofit called Athlete Ally. I'm not sure if you guys are too familiar with that, but it's creating a safe space for all athletes of all gender, races, sexual orientation. So just making a safe space for everyone, just be themselves and not have any judgment or anything like that. So I just watched all of their updates, and a lot of their updates are in regards to NFL. I know that what is his name? His name is Joe something, but he's huge in the NFL apparently, and he kind of started working with Athlete Ally. So I have like a skewed view of the NFL just because I'm impacted by that and I'm very passionate about that organization. But individually, like when NFL makes decisions and all the news and all that good stuff, I kind of just ignore it. I know that a lot of things have been happening just back to back to back, and it's kind of like the news. The news just tells us all the bad things, but what about the good things?
So it's like CNN to you. It's like CNN on the Malaysian airline crash. It's like that's a constant stream of that. Okay. Yeah. Kelly, do you have an opinion on the NFL, and has social media impacted it all?
I think the most interesting thing about social media is that it's actually just clued me into things. Like, realistically, 10 years ago, if the Ray Rice incident had happened, probably none of us would know about it unless we were like very actively following football. I wouldn't have known about it. But the thing is that now something like that happens and it's impossible for the person to avoid. And that means that the NFL... So the reality is that it's been happening. Like, let's just be straightforward about this, is that all this sort of thing, domestic violence, with the NBA and the NFL, and I know the PGA recently had its president fired for sexist comments, and the team owner in the NBA got
Donald Sterling,
for racial comments, and you get all that because of social media. That's now coming to the forefront, and so people can't hide behind it. So it's sort of a great thing that social media is doing to. I mean, on the one hand, it's a great thing that it's not letting people like Ray Rice get away with being a hometown hero and a celebrated person, or Michael Vick being a celebrated person for doing horrible things. On the other hand, I feel like it then goes too far in some other directions. For example, recently the president of the PGA was asked to actually he was fired. He was asked to resign, and then he said he wouldn't, so they just impeached him because he made a comment about some people were having an argument, and he offhandedly made a comment that they sounded like a couple of squealing schoolgirls, which is imagery to me. That doesn't sound like there's anything against women or girls. It's creating an image of two young people with high-pitched voices squealing at each other. And for that, he's going to not have his name in a record as ever having been president of the PGA. Sort of seems like the punishment doesn't really fit the crime, but because somebody's going to get insulted, because somebody's going to get really hurt by that because they feel like that's depicting their young girls as negative, that he has a responsibility. And I agree that a person in that kind of power has the responsibility to make the best kind of comments. So really,
but did that happen because social media brought so much attention to it? That's why he was fired. Yeah. I missed that, shockingly. I mean, I know what you mean by it's inevitable to avoid. It's impossible to avoid, but I missed that he was fired for that.
Yeah, and I think it was because he tweeted it to somebody.
That's right. That's what it was. Now I remember.
It was a tweet that he made, and he said, "You two sound like a couple of squealing schoolgirls," and he was fired for that. And it just seems like, give him a slap on the wrist, tell him that was inappropriate.
Oh, so the PGA fired him because of the optics of social media, because what it brought. Okay.
Yeah, because then you have a bunch of people that are going to come on because he's obviously going to be well followed by golf people, that it creates a bad image for golf in the eyes of the PR people, and therefore something has to be done about it. I think.
Well, and he wasn't fired for that, right? He was being essentially held to task for other stuff that was behind.
I have a feeling that it might have been the straw that broke the camel's back, but that was it.
Well, that straw breaks a lot of camels' backs.
I haven't thought. So I'm a casual sports viewer, which I've been really upfront about. And I'll tell you what, I could watch the NFL right now if something's changed. I like professional football. I do. I enjoy it, and I have enjoyed it in the past. But it's the same kind of perception problem to me. And I'll say it really directly, like, the fact that this various associations who represent the brand of the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, NASCAR and others, like the fact that they kind of don't want to get it together, and then they get called out by some of their athletes or the people who participate in sports on social media. I mean, to me, it's like, yeah, get it together. Like
that's why
you are the one that represents the idea of this sport. And so when I see an NFL player leading, and there were several particularly that led the Ray Rice situation and said, that's not acceptable behavior, and we're not going to sit here and watch this just go under the radar. I mean, to me, that's really important. So I see that that relationship, and I appreciate that. And if for example, if the NFL got it together and Goodell and others handled it a little bit better and more professionally, I might actually be more interested in being a fan.
I also think that the thing that's really wrong with the NFL these days, and you don't mind me jumping in, is the fact that I think concussions is something that they've also really just kind of shoved under the carpet.
Yes, and I want everyone to weigh in on this because football has really taken a hit on the violence too. So yeah, anyone else jump into after Albert's time.
The fact that football is a very savage game. It's a very entertaining game in the same light. But I think if I had kids right now, I would not let them play football, because you see all these people who are like committing suicide at the age of 40, at the age of 35, because they get all these things going on in their brain, and they get multiple concussions a game. And the NFL, I think, to make matters worse, is a nonprofit, and so they make a ton of money every year, and they've kind of just shoved it all under the carpet, and they keep on making money. They have a lot of people who love watching them, and I'll still watch the NFL because it's entertaining. It's something to talk about. It's something to do on a Sunday. But that's always on the back of my head, especially
Yeah.
when I see like somebody who gets hurt or gets hit like really hard.
And Albert, that's really indicative of what's happening in hockey as well. Those guys that get way more concussions, and it's amazing to me how many of them suffer the same kind of trauma that the ex-football players do. And one of them, Eric Lindros, I don't know if you guys know, he's from Toronto, and he finally retired at 36. Like the guy walks around with sunglasses and a hat because he's bothered by the light, right? Like it's really affecting him. And some of these guys, like you said, like people don't talk about it, but a lot of them end up suffering or end up dying, like very, very early on.
So, Satnam, because you're a rabid NFL fan, and if you were rich, you wouldn't care about sustainability, right? No, but you said, if I had a ton of money, I'd be like one of those jerks on the golf course. I'm sure you were being slightly humorous. But so you're a crazy NFL fan, right? Do these things bother you? The violence, or because what I'm trying to figure out is it going to get to a breaking point where it impacts viewership? Because it's not hurting the NFL as we speak. That's what I'd like to hear you give me your opinion. Do you think it's going to impact it at all?
I think the thing is, because I watch a lot of people talk about sports and especially the NFL goes on. I think the biggest thing is, like, especially what NFL doing lately is taking all the big head-to-head hits and all the big hits taking away. A lot of people that play the sport and a lot of people watch that, they take that as a negative. So, as NFL trying to become safer and safer, a lot of people don't like that, because what really made the NFL famous is the big hits, right? If you talk about
but the people who don't like it would argue that Tom Brady and Peyton Manning made it big, that great quarterbacks do, and they get hurt, right?
Yes, it's vice versa, right? You heard about from players and you hear about fans. If I'm not a fan, do I want to see Cap going down? No, for the season, definitely not. But it's a double-edged sword, right? One is the players, right? Players know that they're gonna get hit, right? And they know the business that they're getting into, and you hear about from their perspective.
The older players will tell you, Satnam, BS. They'll tell you they were not told a lot of the things, especially the players that are, retired now, recently retired. They were not told.
What you're pertaining to about is, I think, the most thing in the NFL that nobody knew is how concussions was going to impact in the futures. I think that's what they were. Were not told. That's the big thing, right? But also, like, if you talk to individual players that plays the game, right? They say that if they get the last player, I think I forgot, it was Charles from Kansas City, right? He took a head-to-head hit. He walked out, and the reason he explained was that, reason I didn't take a concussion test is because I went to my side. I didn't go to the opposite side, or I didn't fall down. I could walk, right? So that's the thing. I think the mentality is from the player is, if they get in the hit, no, they gotta go back. They don't really compare about the concussion. I think the most reason, like, you hear about NFL is, like, lately, is that they have to go through concussion tests, and a lot of players don't like to do that. They want to get back on the field. I think that there has to be a line that players want to go back in the game, but NFL doesn't allow it. I think NFL doing a great job, but it also has to be taken to a player's responsibility. I think that's what
that kind of encourages this whole, like, machismo that's not really all that justified, where it's like, you're a quarterback in the game and you get clocked 5 times and, you clearly have a concussion. There was this game, I think, earlier this year where I think the University of Michigan was playing.
Oh, yeah, they let the quarterback go back in.
And the quarterback was clearly woozy on TV, and they left him in, and then I think they put him back out there after Michigan punted and then got the ball back. Mm-hmm. And you just look at things like that, and it's like, are you kidding me? I mean, the guy is, like, ready to keel over, and you're going to let him.
That was really
stupid. Did you turn the game off then? Did you stop watching college football then? Because that's where.
I mean, I didn't stop watching college football. I watched the highlight. I marveled at it. I was like, wow, are you kidding me? And I mean, I definitely don't. I mean, I play, like, I guess, college football pick'em to the extent of, how much I care. But outside of that, I mean, I look at scores, and, Yeah, I pay attention like
And
offhand
you
on
play
college
fantasy,
football.
and you're a rabid fantasy football person, right?
Yeah, I have 4 fantasy football teams because people invite me, and I think one of them this year I actually paid an entry fee for too. So there's that. But I mean, there's definitely the point where it's like, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm too busy maybe I need to get to the point where I'm too busy where football wouldn't, or any of these sports just wouldn't matter anymore, where it's like, okay, all right, I'm really done with you because you just don't really fit into my life somewhere. I don't know. I mean, it's entertainment, but I guess I watch the NFL and I
We're
get the
not
whole thing.
judging you. I just want to ask you, when you said I need to get to the point where I'm too busy, I mean that's implying that sports is somehow not
Yeah, yeah.
I
worthy.
think
I
we're
don't.
doing the right though,
I mean, I
right?
watch the NFL and I think of Roman gladiatorial sports where, some quarterback will get clocked by a linebacker, and then, we'll also either be doing a thumbs up or a thumbs down from the gladiator, remember? I mean, I feel like that's kind of what the game is kind of like
Well, I'm not
today.
that old. I don't remember it in real life.
I'm talking about the movie. I'm talking about the movie Gladiator with Russell Crowe.
Okay.
There's that one moment where the emperor, flashes his thumbs up or thumbs down, and I feel like that's what the NFL is these days.
That's a really interesting thing to rate. It's funny you said that because literally before you said that, Albert, I was like gladiators. I was just thinking about that problem. And
Yeah.
I mean, look, I know people who have gone through the farm team system in some sports, and I think I even know a couple of people in the NFL just casually through friends. And I mean, I personally I think they are in this arena and it's treated differently, and their whole life is oriented towards sports, and mine is not. So I get that it's a different thing, but those are still human beings. And when I think about particularly football, football and college football, which throws people into this system, which is very all or nothing, and then you walk out with maybe not much of a degree, if a degree at all, and maybe you end up doing pro sports or not. But if you're in the NFL and you're riding the bench for a couple years and then you're out and you got no skills and you got concussion problems, I mean, that sucks, man. I just can't see that any other way.
And you know what, Joe? I think I don't even want to get into the NCAA because I have so many questions. Angry.
Don't get me
Were
started on the
you
NCAA.
Lena, just really quickly, did you play in NCAA sports?
I did not. I got hurt, I think it was my junior year in high school, so I couldn't play any sports anymore.
Because I want to do a whole nother show on the NCAA because I think there's so many issues there that we don't even have time to tackle. But let's move to the NBA, and God, we got a bunch of stuff to do. But so I'm going to start with Selena because she's the most rabid NBA fan. We know you watch all the time. And when did you start watching basketball? Like, give me a decade.
Oh man, I watched ever since I was born. I've been watching all kinds of sports. So I think when I remember from my memory, I was watching sports as early as 4 years old. My dad was a huge O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, tag team fan. So yeah, that was back in the day. So I was always a Laker fan. I was an Orlando fan because I know that O'Neal was switching up a little bit, and Heat fan. I was only that by default just because my dad is huge on the NBA. So I didn't really have a choice as far as who I was going for. But as I got older, I chose my team.
So has your perception of the NBA changed? Because if you've been watching since Shaq, not since he was in Orlando, you couldn't have.
Yeah, right? Yeah, no, actually.
Okay,
yeah.
So the NBA's changed a lot since then. That's a good chunk of time. Has your perception of it changed?
Not really. I know that the only thing that's changed for me is that they wear different shorts.
All right, so do this. Give me in 60 seconds your perception of the NBA. What is it? What are the players like? What does it represent? Give me that.
Okay. So I feel like I'm a little biased because I love basketball.
Go ahead. Be biased. I love it.
Well, basketball for me, I'm in my best state when I'm playing basketball. It's a lot of teamwork, a lot of focus, so it teaches you a lot about life in general. It sets you up for being able to be in the competitive atmosphere of a business. I think that I've learned a lot as far as working together in teams and collaborating. You can't be a one-man team ever, so you always have to have your teammates, and I was constantly reminded of that, even though I was always a point guard.
That's you playing. That's you playing. What's your perception of the NBA and the players? Like, what, you know how we did the golf thing,
Okay.
sort of like it's old, it's white, it's rich, it's exclusive. What is the NBA in your mind that way?
Got it. I don't know. The NBA attracts a wider amount and different types of people. So I know that as a minority myself, I know that maybe not a lot of women watch NBA. I know a lot of women watch NBA now. As far as back in the day, I don't think that many women actually watched it. It's not much of a expensive sport. It's not too expensive to go and watch the games either. Yeah, if you want front row, of course.
Do you go regularly to NBA games?
I wouldn't say I can go regularly just because I'm a broke
Every
college
year? Do you go every year?
graduate. Oh yeah, of course. At least once a year. I gotta make it to a game.
How much?
I know that.
How much does it
How
cost?
much does it cost? I'll spend like $60 on a ticket.
Okay, and that's inexpensive. Well, okay, so then you're going to pay for parking and not alcohol, because I don't know. Can you drink at an NBA game? It's been so many years.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Of course.
So it's over $100.
Yeah.
I'd say it probably hit you like 100 on average, depending on
100
which
on
game you go.
average.
And
Yeah, and I get good gas mileage, so I'm not too worried about gas or anything.
So that's affordable. So that's affordable to you versus like an NFL ticket that might be $400, right?
It's a lot more worth it. I get still that competition sport. I get the drama that I need. They're all like sweaty and everything, and they're actually like working their bodies out. So, I feel like they are earning their worth. Like they're paid millions of dollars to play.
All right, wait, I have to stop. Kelly, how much does it cost to golf for a day? And it doesn't have to be at the most, but what's an average round of golf in California, Kelly?
That's actually a really weird question because I've been doing some looking. I can actually play at a lot of municipal courses right now.
Yep.
For like maybe $20 a round.
Okay.
What
about your course?
Right
what about your
now, at my course, basically you can probably play for something like $44, but once it turns into the actual season, because the thing is that we're off season, right? So once it's May, I would say April, May, then you're looking at paying like $80 a round on a weekday, $100 a round on a weekend. That doesn't, on a lot of courses, that doesn't include your cart. So then you might rent your cart for another $15. And then food. All told, you're looking at spending probably between $100 and $150 per person.
So and then you have to have your equipment too. So that's okay. I'm just trying to. So $100 to Selena is not a ton of money to go to an NBA game. Does anybody else ever attend NBA? Albert, do you ever go?
I've only ever gone to an NFL playoff game, and I think I got tickets then for.
No, what about the NBA? And I know didn't you go to the World Series?
I did not go to the World Series. I didn't end up going, but I know tickets for that were ridiculously expensive too. I've never been to an NBA game though. That is a sport that I would like to check out in person because I know the NBA puts on a show. For sure.
Yes, Albert, we'll go. Don't worry.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Do you go to NFL games ever?
Yeah, I've been to a few. I haven't gone to a new Niner stadium. I'm probably gonna go to one of these games. I've been to a few NBA games, but those were in the executive boxes, so those are pretty fun.
So you
How
didn't
did you
have
get into an executive box?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how much would it cost you to go to an NFL game?
Depends on which game. Right now, like you're looking at average about $200 or so for any Niner games. If you're looking at Seahawks coming to town, that's an average about $400. That's high up. And if you're looking at like a close to see, you're looking at about $2 to $3 grand.
Okay, so that's where Selena. That's where your perception of it's affordable to go to an NBA game comes from. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like everyone said, they put on a show. it's a lot of fun watching basketball games. There's just so much going on. It can happen at a really quick pace.
I think the biggest difference between the NBA and the NFL is supply and demand. In the NFL, you get only 8 home games and you're about 60, 70,000 crowd, while in the NBA, you're looking about 40 plus home games, 40, 42, give or take. So you're looking at about that difference.
All right, so Selena, let me ask you, what about the Donald Sterling mess and the other things that have happened? What's your perspective of how the NBA handled it?
I think it was spot on. I definitely think that as an owner of a basketball team, you should never have that perspective, especially if you're kind of talking about some of your players that actually you hired and you pay and they're playing for you, and obviously now they don't like you. So, how are you valuable to that company, or how are you valuable to the team if you are degrading your own employees? I just don't really agree with that. So I think that they handle it really well. He needed to get rid of just ownership completely. He didn't really, he had a buttload of money. That's cool. But yeah, he didn't deserve to have a team. I think it's a privilege to own and be able to run a basketball team.
Well, I hope everyone on the panel agrees with you on that, but I wondered about your perspective how the NBA handled it. So, and Joe, I'd love to hear you juxtapose NFL and NBA.
I definitely agree with Selena on this particular point. And, look, I'll just tell you the thing that I thought was most interesting, because I'm not a huge NBA fan, but I get to it occasionally. But I'll tell you what, every single player that was around that particular thing wrote something about it online, whether it was on Twitter or the blog or was quoted in an interview. And the feeling by and large was like, agreed, thank God someone dealt with one of these kinds of things really directly for a change. And I got to tell you, the thing that kind of blew my mind is they all said, to be honest, we kind of didn't think it was going to get dealt with so well and directly. So kudos to the NBA for dealing with it properly and probably taking their brand in a really good direction, because if your players love you and they care about the way you run that league, that shows, right? That shows. It really does.
Well, okay, so at one point the NBA had a horrible thug reputation, right? After the heyday of Larry, the Celtics, who are far better than the Lakers in the history of basketball, just have to put that out there. So after that, they went through this horrific Allen Iverson plague. Not just Allen Iverson, Jason Kidd hitting his wife. There were just story after story. It was like what the NFL is going through now. And then David Stern implemented the dress policy and everything else. Tell me, that's what I was trying to get to. Does anyone ever think of the NBA? Because that thug term was used over and over and over. The same things that are said about the NFL now were said about the NBA, and I don't hear it, but maybe I'm wrong. Does anybody have an opinion on that?
I think the NBA is like a very superstar-driven league. That's what sells tickets. It's what gets people really fired up for games. You don't necessarily if the Oklahoma City Thunder were to play the Cleveland Cavaliers, I don't think you really think of it as the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Oklahoma City Thunder as much as you think of it as Kevin Durant versus LeBron James. And so I think those are the players that really drive it. I think Michael Jordan really turned it into an individual accomplishment type league, and I think Kobe Bryant in his entire career really embodies that. And I think that's what people really go off of these days. You really look forward to when the superstars come to town. Otherwise, it's not as big, and you usually need a superstar to win in the NBA too. Unlike Major League Baseball, where you can just have a couple of people get really, really hot at the right time. In the NBA, you need to have one or two superstars in order to be successful and make it to the finals.
Yeah, you know what?
Yeah, I think that.
No, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, okay. So I think it has a lot to do with being a brand ambassador, and that's the essence of all marketing campaigns, of everything, is you become a brand ambassador, whether you're a customer, we're selling something to you, or you're an employee. So going back to the Kevin Durant's, all that good stuff, they are brand ambassadors to the NBA, so they make the NBA look really well, and since we are having such great players in the U.S., and it's really propelling the brand forward, and that's why the NBA has a really good image as well.
So the NFL has a lot of huge superstars, despite I know it's very different because for the NBA you actually see their faces and their motions, and it's much more visible than the helmet being on, you know. But the NFL has a lot of great superstars and a lot of positive ambassadors, right? I mean, Tom Brady. I will constantly bring up New England sports, but even Peyton, there's a zillion of them. I mean, and there are a lot of good guys in the NFL, but that's not the perception. So what is the NBA doing differently if what I think is true that God, we didn't even get to soccer yet, you guys either. Go. Anybody want to weigh in on that?
No, and I want to say something. I'm not sure whether or not the NFL has this, but the NBA does have a players association that's really vocal. And when Kevin Johnson came out against Sterling, do you remember that? I mean, when you have players that kind of come together and they team up and say this is something that can't be done, I mean, that in itself says a lot. I don't know if the NFL has that.
No,
and for a long time. Do they?
They have a strong players association when it comes to negotiating contracts, but they have not been very visible on this.
Yes, it's the PR scandal and stuff when stuff like that happens, right? But I wanted to make a point about what Albert said, and you know, a lot of the demand and from I guess the general public increases, you know, the value of that player, and it goes to his head. And a lot of times we're talking about players that didn't even, let's say, finish high school, that earned an NBA place. And you know, they end up getting to the point where they think that they can do anything. And I'm not saying that that's...
You mean NFL, because the NBA doesn't take high school players anymore.
Not anymore, but they did.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
You're right. But I mean, that's the thing that I think that's one thing about sports that has to become a little bit more responsible. So.
All right, so you know what? We have 9 minutes left, and I kind of wanted to talk about soccer, but I don't know if... Okay, so let's just jump on it real quick, and I'll cut us when we have a few minutes left. Satnam, you watch soccer a lot, right?
Mm-hmm. Every weekend.
Peers, do all your friends, because that's one thing I'm trying to get at, is are lots and lots of millennials watching soccer, or is it mostly TV driven?
It depends on where you are, and I think in America, you know, if you talk about like the kids, right, especially the young kids, you see this a lot of kids are playing soccer and they're getting into it. I think it's bringing over, especially with the NBC Sports Channel now, doing a really good job of covering the Barkley Premier Leagues. I think that's getting a lot of attention. But yeah, in over here, I have friends that don't watch it too much. In the States, yes. But if you go anywhere else, yes, it's the most popular sport.
And you're all watching English teams?
I usually I like the English Barkley Premier League because it's fun to watch. I do watch a little bit of Spanish league here and there. I'll watch the Bundesliga, which is German. Then I'll watch the Champions League, which is during the weekdays, which you combine all the best teams from all the other countries from Europe.
Albert? How much soccer do you watch?
I mean, I've decided that so you know, I know Jan Gordon. Jan Gordon's husband is a follower of Tottenham Hotspur, and I just decided to adopt them because he's a fan of them, and I just decided to do that after the World Cup.
It's fun to say, right? Tottenham Hotspur. That's kind of a cool.
Tottenham Hotspur. And so, you know, I guess I follow it a little bit. You know, I'll go over there from time to time in ESPN or in the or in Yahoo Sports, and you know, I think it's really interesting how soccer over there works, because there's a lot of relegation, there's promotion, and then you have teams that just have obscene amounts of money like Manchester United, who can just buy any player they want, and even at that point they might not even win it all. But I like the World Cup more because I think it really brings a sense of patriotism, and you can have
It's a special event.
It is, yeah. It's definitely a very special event, yeah.
So Joe, you guys are putting some cool stuff in the chat, and a lot of you are talking about online free viewing of sports would really alter things, right? So where do you watch your soccer? Do you have to pay for this? Satnam, do you pay for the Barkley League, or is it just part of?
It's on the NBC Sports Channel, which is kind of like you have to pay a little bit more to get it.
Yeah.
Depending on which network you use. Yeah, but again, I sometimes I just pop on the internet and there's a lot of free websites I can go to and watch any sports I can, and that's how I usually watch the Red Zone channel.
All right, so
But
wait. So how many of you watch on your tablets or your computers? Like, give me the percentages. Are you watching on TV, maybe the NFL on a Sunday? But Selena keeps talking about being at work. Obviously, it's a good thing you work for yourself, right? No, you're always watching sports at work, or you don't work for yourself. But
Oh,
how
I
much?
do. Well, I do work for myself too, and then I work for a solar company.
So how much of your TV? I mean, sorry, your sports is consumed not on the television in your living room?
I don't really like to watch TV, so probably like 100%, if like
All right,
maybe like
so
99%.
all right, good. Satnam, what about you? How much is like Twitter feed, cable? I mean, non-television. Sorry.
a lot, because the most of the time I'm reading either it's about technology or it's either about sports. So I go to multiple websites just to read about sports. On Twitter, I don't do too much following. I do a little bit, but mostly I get my news from news feeds.
So,
Websites
but what is now, not just the news, but the actual viewing of a game? You're going to watch a soccer game. Where are you watching?
I'll probably say 80% on my TV, 20% on either will be on my phone or my laptop or computer.
Okay, Albert, what about you?
What do? I consume my sports TV when I go to the bar with a friend, or on my TV when I turn my TV on, which is very rarely. But because
No,
I'm
what I'm
all
saying,
over
are
the
you
place.
watching it primarily on a computer, on a tablet?
Oh, I would say I watch on TV when I watch sports, actually, and then
Okay.
if I'm out on the go, I'll have my ESPN app open and I'll just tell
There
them to
you go.
notify me.
Yeah. Okay, so you're connected to it even when you're not watching it. Joe,
Yeah.
do you watch any the sports you do follow, Joe? Where are you following it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't do TV. I haven't for a few years, so it would be online. Like and frankly, if there was a little better, like so the market getting sports streamed on TV is still pretty early. But I'll tell you what I would do if I could very easily pop open my phone or a tablet and just watch whatever sports like just on the go easily. I'd probably be doing that a little more often.
And Kelly, so I know Kelly's forced to watch certain sports when he's at the pro shop, right? So with your hockey, because we have to do another one where we really talk about hockey and soccer in more depth, I think. And Kelly, I'd love you to come back for that. But when you're watching sports besides the pro shop, where are you doing it?
I end up not actually watching a lot of sports because, and we're kind of talking about this on the chat on the side here, is there's not a whole lot of legitimate ways, if you don't want to pay an exorbitant amount of money to watch sports on your computer or tablet or something. I'm not paying for cable TV, which means I don't have access to some mobile version. So I end up listening to a lot of sports.
On the radio?
I'll use, because
Like real radio or like streaming the radio?
Yeah, it's completely free. Like, radio stations just make themselves available. So most of the time, because even if I did subscribe to something like NHL Network, all my games would be blacked out. I couldn't be able to watch Sharks games because they still would require me. And I know that this is going to work with anybody. If you're a fan of any of your home teams, they black out your game so that you still have to subscribe to the television service.
Yep.
So I just go with, I'll listen to it on the radio and then watch the highlights later.
So you're sitting in your padded room, but right now it looks like you're on a padded wall.
Yeah, I have a bed back here.
No, but when it's dark, it's like, okay, he's in the dark with his radio on.
With your cat, too.
He's like my new favorite character. This is awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say because I'm in the car a lot, I also do listen to the San Francisco Giants on the radio a lot of the time, and that's also what's streaming when I'm here at work.
Even when they suck, Albert, or are you a bandwagon? I know they've been good for so long. It's hard to say
I've been a
that.
fan of the Giants since 1998. I tried to go through those lean years, and so I guess I'm being rewarded. Although yesterday it was like, I kind of don't want to watch because holy crap, what's gonna happen?
Yeah,
It was a really tense game. Yeah.
Okay. So I think Joe, I mean, is there any question of the overall questions that I missed? Because I think we got them all. And what I do know is we need to do another version with other sports because there's just.
Yeah, we probably need to do one to talk about like college sports, and then also to talk a little bit more in depth about some of these. Yeah.
College basketball.
Okay, I'll ask the panel real quick. Is there a sport that you're watching? And don't say cricket, Albert. There's no way you're really watching cricket, really, are you?
I'm not watching cricket. I went to one cricket match. It's a very interesting game, and I've been trying to ask people that I meet that play cricket that if I could go and watch a cricket match locally.
All right, I will help you out. I watched many cricket matches in real life and still don't flip and understand it. But
me neither.
Well, I
But
lived
it's
in the
still
UK.
fascinating.
So is there a sport that we miss that we have to come back to besides the ones we mentioned? Because is there anything that you're watching that
NASCAR fascinates me. We have to talk about NASCAR. Just saying.
Maybe
I don't watch.
You might be interested in talking about curling.
I did that too. I live in Scotland. Okay, and it's Canadian. Canadians won the World Championship of curling the last.
Right. So if Joe wants to talk about NASCAR, I want F1 in there as well because I was a huge
All right, we are going to definitely talk about NASCAR and Formula One. Absolutely. And Joe, I've been to NASCAR races, like totally freaky. All right, so we have to go because it's 9 o'clock.
What you should also talk about is gaming because you now have video games and their championships now being televised.
Oh, I know, and I just have to tell you this one thing that my wonderful partner Bob wanted us to talk about, and we're going to have to get back to it. The Kansas City Royals went through a huge slump in the beginning of the year, and the coach attributes it to the fact that they all got addicted, because they're all millennials, to Clash of the Clans, and he finally realized, because he's not a video guy, oh my God, this is all they're talking about, so he made them quit playing, and all of a sudden they went on a winning streak. So that's a whole other thing. But all right, arena football, we're going to talk about a lot of sports in the future. It's 9 o'clock. Next week we are doing a really interesting show on how millennials consume news.
Okay.
So that's next Thursday at 8 p.m. And Joe's hosting. No, is that the one you're hosting? It might be the week after. Anyway, see you all then. Thanks for coming. And whoever's on the Hangout, you can stay and hang out with us if you'd like. Bye, everybody.